Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Innal muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat wal qanitina wal qanitat والصادقين والصادقات والصابرين والصابرات والخاشعين والخاشعات والمتصدقين والمتصدقات والصائمين والصائمات والحافظين فروجهم والحافظات والذاكرين الله كثيرا والذاكرات أعد الله لهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما. इस्लाम में
Huzur says the status given to women in Islam should be kept in view by every Ahmadi woman, especially in this society. There is the freedom to the degree which no religion allows. If you recognize this station granted to you, this status given to you, then you will be giving birth to future fathers, to future husbands, future sons-in-law. And today in the society, the strife, the fighting that you see, you will be the cause of cleansing that. But many a time you have to make sacrifices for that. You will have to focus on your own reformation. You will have to be focused on being obedient to the directives of Allah the Almighty. In Surah Al-Ahzab, Huzur says that Huzur has just recited the verse 36 of. In this verse, Allah the Almighty has told men and women that if you work according to those directives, there are 10 points mentioned in there, then there is not only forgiveness but great reward which you will attain. And when Allah the Almighty says that He will grant great reward, then that great means such a reward which you cannot even imagine, such bounties that you cannot even imagine. You will derive the fruits of that in this world, in this life, and also then there are these rewards for the hereafter as well. So in these points, the first point which has been mentioned is to become perfect believers. Not that you just say that with your tongue and finish it at that. In your heart, in your mind, there should be the desire to put that into practice. And then the next point mentioned is that when you have resorted to the faith that there is one God and He has no associate, and Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and His messenger, and Allah is the holder of all might and all power, and He is the creator of everything in the heavens and the earth, then you need to instill this point in your hearts and minds and become a perfect believer and go through all the stages of belief. In the Holy Quran, the directives that are mentioned in the Holy Quran, you should become obedient in the way that you put that into practice. In the Holy Quran, we are told that your faith will be complete when you believe in the unseen, and you believe that Allah is there and He has all powers. He is the master, the holder of all powers. And then also you will be a worshipful servant who will offer the salat prayers at the designated times, and then for the sake of Allah the Almighty, when there is need for financial sacrifice, then you will vie with one another and offer sacrifices. With the grace of Allah the Almighty, the teachings given to us through the promised Messiah salam and through the training of the caliphs, the khulafa of anti-ahmadiyya. In the Jamaat, we see that Ahmadi ladies are of a very high standard in their financial sacrifice, sometimes even when they are suffering hardship. When they find an appeal for financial contributions, they come forward and they sacrifice their loved items like their jewelry for that cause. But then also it is essential to pay your full attention towards worship of Allah the Almighty. So until there is the perfect faith, the perfect belief in Allah the Almighty, and there is attention, there is focus towards His worship, in His way there is the desire to offer sacrifices of life, property, time, then you will continue to progress, and nothing can stand in your path of progress when you have those feelings, those sentiments alive. And then it is also said that in this guidance of the Holy Quran, a Muslim believer should be obedient. A Muslim woman should be totally obedient to Allah the Almighty and His directives. The organization of the Jamaat, the organization made for Ahmadi ladies, is so that they will have this awareness that we have a distinct character. If, for example, the women should feel that if there are fields in which men are working and we cannot, then women, when they are invited to undertake some work, they should do it in a way that they are competing with the men. They will know that how much work they have done. So that is why they have their own organization, and there should be the awareness that we have to uphold the dignity of the Jamaat and we have to polish it further. And for that aim, you ladies, you make your own meetings, you have your own functions, like your Ijtema is being held right now. So, for your own reformation, for the increase of your own knowledge, to present the proof of your obedience in your children, you need to create that spirit of obedience to the organization of the Jamaat. In these meetings that you organize, you should participate in them with great love, great zeal, and those sisters who do not come, you should explain to them and get them also attracted to these programs and get them to participate as well. In this way, you will not only be reforming your own self, you will also then have double rewards. And this worry for the reformation of others, this is the conduct of prophets. The prophets had to worry about other people, so nobody should think that why should we interfere in the affairs of others. No, you need to worry if the others are not participating, but you have to do that with wisdom, with gentility. It is said in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that what you desire for yourself, you should desire that for others as well. So when you desire this good act for yourself, then try to get others involved in it as well. In this way, you will be distributing goodness in society. So in this way, when you will be reforming another woman, then you will be providing that reformation to society at large. Another point which we are expected is a very important point, and that is honesty. If you are established on truth and honesty, and if you will spread it, then you will be polishing the beauty of society. If a woman has this awareness that how important it is, and she is resolved that I will always be honest and I will not allow any dishonesty to come near me at all, then this is such a jihad, this is such a striving that you will, by this, you will cleanse yourself of association of partners with Allah. You will be cleansing the society against it, and in your children as well. You will create that awareness of abhorrence against lies, because Allah the Almighty has declared that lies are like associating partners with Allah the Almighty. So, giving a wrong account of things turns into dishonesty. Children can observe what their mothers are doing. They are under the training of their mothers. Whatever they see in their mothers, they adopt that without knowing. They take those standards on board without even being aware of it. So you ladies and girls that are present here, I want to draw your attention to this point, that from the society, the cleansing of shirk, associating partners with Allah, if you require that, if you wish that, if you desire that, and if you want to cleanse the society, then to cleanse the society of untruths, of deceit, then you should take on this as a campaign, and Lajna Imaillah UK should specially work on this. I have said this many a times before. The truth is not only that if somebody asks you something, you just speak what is the truth. You have to be so clear-cut that there should be no element around it which is hiding anything. What an Ahmadi exclaims should be free of all shadows of doubt around it, according to the promise of Allah the Almighty. This quality will become a source of your reformation on one hand, and on the other hand, you will be wrapped in the cloak of forgiveness by Allah the Almighty. And then in this passage of the Holy Quran, Allah the Almighty says that a distinctive feature, a distinctive quality of a believer is patience. There are so many points in life where a person loses one's patience. Sometimes the situation is such that a person finds it very hard to be patient. So even in those kind of circumstances, this is a distinguishing feature of a believing woman, that she is patient. If the in-laws, they treat you in a way that you don't like, be patient on that. If the husband has some habits which you do not like, then be patient. At another time, when you can explain to him, then explain it when he's in a good mood. Otherwise, if you start fighting, quarrels will become bigger. And in this way, if you will look at the right time to speak, then a lot of strife in homes will be removed. And it is these points which will then be instilled in your children. Then you will become a guarantor for the future society. Then out of the home, in society, there are things which are hurtful. Sometimes there are neighbors. Sometimes there are people in the surrounding area. You are hurt by them. Sometimes the office bearers of the Jamaat, sometimes the Lajna officials. In meetings, in Ijtemas, sometimes you feel hurt at something if you are not patient. In those situations, either there is a dispute that will start brewing at the same point, or when these women, they go home, they will mention it to their relatives, to their husbands, and then in the whole society, there is unrest which is created. Many a time, I received those reports that people went away and then there was a quarrel that ensued. So it is said in this directive of the Holy Quran that it is a great, glorious, distinctive quality of a Muslim believing woman that she is patient, and as a result of that, Allah gives a lot of reward. Then another great quality is humility. If that is cultivated, then every man, woman, and child will start respecting and honoring others. And as a result, there will be peace in society which will be established, and the whole society will become a paradise. Some people, they are very aware of the grandeur of their family background. Some are very aware of them being wealthy. Some, because of some qualities in their children, think they are grand. they are higher than others. So there are various things which give rise to this kind of arrogance. And where there is arrogance, humility departs. We are the followers of that Messiah and Mahdi, who, because of his humility, Allah the Almighty had addressed him and said that Allah was well pleased with your humble ways. So, O ye ladies who are linked to that Messiah, make humility your special distinguishing feature, so that in the sight of Allah you are also held as loved. And then another distinguishing feature mentioned in this verse of the Holy Quran is that the believing women are those who give alms, spend on charity. So I have mentioned that before, that Ahmadi ladies are very good at that. May Allah give them greater ability. And then the women who fast, they are mentioned. What is fasting? Fasting is that accordance to the directives of Allah the Almighty, to hold yourself from indulging in things which would otherwise be lawful. With this, you will have practice of patience, practice in doing good, and practice in worship of Allah the Almighty, and practice in sacrifice. So Huzu says that we have just left Ramadan 2 weeks ago, and it has given us that habit, that practice of patience and doing good. So make it a part and parcel of your life. In every action, a righteous action, the condition in Islamic teaching is that you will make it permanent. And then another point is to make yourself holder of high dignity, protecting and safeguarding your dignity, the natural shyness. The teachings of Islam have given you the directive that you safeguard your piety and you cover yourself properly. In the West, the shamelessness that you see, no Ahmadi woman or Ahmadi girl should ever be impressed with that. In the name of liberty, there is shamelessness. In the name of fashion, there is shamelessness. Islam does not forbid women from coming out of their homes to undertake their jobs, but with certain conditions. That your beauty and embellishment should not be displayed. There should be a barrier between men and women of sorts. You should uphold that. In the Holy Quran, Allah the Almighty has mentioned about Moses, peace be on him, that when he arrived at a spot where there were the people who were trying to have their cattle watered, there were 2 girls who were sitting aside. When he asked them that, what is the matter with you, they said that there are all these men. When they will leave, then we will take our animals to be watered. It was the dignity of these girls that they did not want to go and mingle with the men. So to say that there is no harm in having mixed gatherings, and this separation of men and women is illogical. That is not correct, because this has always been the case in the previous scriptures as well. The dignity and shyness given to women. An Ahmadi lady, an Ahmadi girl should polish that further and become more dignified. Allah the Almighty has given us very clear guidelines on that. So, without feeling embarrassed, your natural dignity, the natural shyness that you have within you, you should pay attention to that, be guided by it. In the West, the society that you see has become so liberal. If you will do that as well, then you will be just liberated of all these directives. Then in the end, Allah the Almighty has said in this passage that you become worshipful servants of Allah the Almighty if you will have these qualities which are mentioned in this verse, and you become such that you remember Allah. And instead of giving in to the glitter of the world, instead of that, you look for the beauty of worship of Allah, the beauty of pleasure of Allah. Then you are given the glad tidings of such rewards that you cannot fathom, you cannot even imagine. This is something which will make you distinct from the women of the past or women outside Islam, because Islam is the religion of faith, so we can religion of nature. Islam has that claim that there is no directive given in Islam which is beyond the capacity of human beings. So you cannot say that it is unnatural, these directives that have been given. So there is no directive which can be a burden. Allah the Almighty has taught the prayer that, "O Allah, do not put such burden on us which I cannot bear." The reason why this prayer has been taught, to tell you that the directives given to you are within your capacity. Each person has their own limitations of capacities, and they work according to those limitations. And Allah has given us the directives to work within that framework. Yes, it is essential that for anything that you want to gain, you have to work hard. You have to make sacrifices. So if you will do that, if you will work hard and make sacrifices, then you will have a great reward. So if a Muslim woman says that Allah should give me a great reward such that no one can even imagine, and then I'm not even required to make any sacrifice, then that cannot be. For having any gains, for acquiring any gains, you have to work hard towards it. So to be obedient to these admonishments, you will have to make some sacrifices. You will have to do these things to protect and safeguard yourselves and your future generations. Without a care for the society that laughs at you, you will have to continue to bravely undertake the following of these admonishments. It's nothing new which people before have not done, or anything which is not being done today. With the coming of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, the people who were steeped in vice, a great revolution was brought about in them. And then his devoted slave, his followers also went through a revolution. The examples of that are well preserved for us, and we have to keep those examples alive in our lives. We have to make ourselves exemplary Ahmadis. so that we can then safeguard the future generations. You can see that in the beginning of Islam, the Muslim women, they were faced with such atrocities. They were asked to give up their faith, and when they refused, they were made to lie down on hot burning sands, and big heavy stones were placed on them. Their legs were tied, each one to a different camel, and the camels were made to run in opposite directions, one from the other, until they were torn into two pieces. But they did not give up their faith. All this they tolerated, they withstood for the sake of their faith, and they proved that our faith cannot be withdrawn from us. No hardship, no punishment can remove it from us. No greed of anything can reduce our faith. Then, when the time came for financial sacrifice, they sacrificed everything. They made huge piles of their jewelry. The true devoted slave of the Holy Prophet ﷺ was the promised Messiah ﷺ, and in his time as well, those sacrifices were needed, and women did that. In the time of the second caliph in Afghanistan, a man was martyred, and his wife, she very boldly made arrangements for the funeral. She brought his body out of that area. She brought her children to Pakistan. Because of her fear, she did not display any weakness. She had perfect faith in Allah the Almighty. She had full focus on those righteous deeds, and that is why she had that strength of faith. In 1920, the second Khalifa, he had launched the scheme for constructing a mosque in Berlin within a month. In that time, 100,000 rupees were collected by the ladies. Those women, they were poor. Their income was very, very meager. The same money was then used for building the mosque in London. It is the sacrifice of these women which bore this fruit. Even today, many women, I have mentioned that before, that whenever I launch a scheme, many women, they bring their jewelry and whatever they have saved, their savings they bring, and they say, please use it for the scheme. But this should be the zeal in every woman amongst us. These are righteous deeds, and you need to keep them alive, not because of any temporary excitement, because of you have to do it because of winning the pleasure of Allah, with that aim, becoming a worshipful servant of Allah the Almighty. Hadhrat Muslim anhu relates an example that once a woman, an Ahmadi woman, came to see me, and she then presented her jewelry. This was at the time of partition of India and Pakistan. Hazrat Muslim anhu said to her that you have lost everything. This is only one item of jewelry you have. Please keep it. You might need it. She said, no. When I was leaving India, my home, I decided that I will give this item for the service of the Jamaat. And along the route, we were robbed and all my other property and jewelry was lost. Only this item was left. So I have to present it. I had promised it to Allah the Almighty. So these are the examples. A person had made that promise. All other jewelry was robbed, was looted. There was just that single item left, but because she had made that promise to Allah the Almighty that I will donate it in His way, so she did not care that if I give this, then what else will be left with me, because it was not a temporary sentiment because of which she had made that promise. It was the call of her heart. It was the heat of faith, which, in spite of the losses she had suffered, it did not let her turn away from the promise she had made to Allah the Almighty. So until these examples will be set by you with continuity, you will always receive the fulfillment of promises by Allah the Almighty. And then there is the sacrifice of children. The sacrifice of children does not mean to chop their heads. What it means is to make them devotees of the faith. Today, with the grace of Allah, Ahmadi mothers are participating in this with great zeal. This is the good training of the mothers before you, that in spite of the weaknesses that are seen, some of the standards have improved. There were some standards which were not there 60 to 70 years ago. So this is also demonstrated by an example in the time of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II. Raziyallahu ta'ala anhu, he gives the example of a girl. He said that a student, a college student, a girl came to me and she gave me a letter in which she had offered to devote her life, dedicate her life for the service of Islam. Hazrat Muslim Maud said to her that we do not have that organization at the moment to accept the devotion of women, so maybe you can marry a devotee of life. So she went back quietly, but it was her sincere intent. After some time, she married a devotee of life, but her father was not agreed. She came to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih and said that my father is not agreeing to this marriage. Through Maulana Abul Atta Sahib Jalandhari, Huzur sent the father the message that please make this match. After a while, after some time, she came back crying, and she said, my father says that now you have married a devotee of life, but if you will go abroad, then I will never see you again. So Hazrat Muslim Maud again sent Maulana Abul Atta Sahib to speak to the father, and the problem was resolved. This was the true spirit of that girl, that she wanted to devote her life for Islam, for the service of Islam, but the men were standing in her way and not letting her do it. So a girl of that time, and many girls in a similar way, they then devoted their life to training their children well. So, as I have said, that in some ways the standards have fallen, but in other ways many of the standards have risen. People have great zeal, women have great zeal to offer their children for becoming waqifin and devotees for the service of Islam. with great zeal, mothers and fathers offer their children for devotion. Mostly mothers do that. Whether it is a girl or a boy, they do not care that what will be the situation when they grow up. Many of the girls in different countries, I've asked them, but their parents are also not worried that where the Jamaat will appoint them and what services will be asked of them. They have got that great zeal in them, the spirit of sacrifice, of devotion. So if there are any Waqifin or girls who are sitting here, who've devoted their lives, I say to them that it is their responsibility as well, that they cultivate that faith in them, that truth in them, that humility in them, and also they should also try and cultivate that true understanding of the directives of Allah the Almighty. Until you understand them, you cannot follow them well. First understand them and then follow them. Excuse me. And also pay attention to the remembrance of Allah the Almighty, so that you can be termed as Muslimat, as Mu'minat, as true believers, as true worshipful servants of Allah the Almighty, so that you can then fulfill the demands of service of the faith of Allah the Almighty. So this is the responsibility of the mothers of today and the mothers of the future. And until the Ahmadi mothers will continue to have that spirit, to cultivate that spirit, they will blow that spirit into their children, then righteous mothers will continue to be born, the righteous fathers will be born, and people of the future with that zeal for sacrifice, who will be worshipful servants of Allah the Almighty, they will continue to be born, who will fulfill the rights of Allah the Almighty and also the creatures of Allah the Almighty. May Allah give the ability to all of you that you will always cling to the directives of Allah the Almighty, to the admonishments of Allah the Almighty, because of your deeds and your words. Every child that is brought up in your laps becomes a sparkling star of the world of Ahmadiyyat, who is a delight for you and a delight for the Jamaat. May Allah make it so that your righteous deeds are such that the Khalifa of the time does not have to worry for you, and each one of you becomes the right hand of the Khalifa of the time. May Allah give you the ability to do that. Ameen. Huzur says, in the end, there is a point I want to make, that yesterday you had the election of your Lajna president. One point I want to make clear, that the Majlis-e-Shura in the organization of the Jamaat is such that the agenda for Shura, there are proposals made, then discussions carried out. This is then sent to the Khalifa as a recommendation. It is not essential that each recommendation is then accepted. If some of your recommendations are not accepted, then with full cheer, you should accept the decision taken by the Khalifa. Some people think that because it was a recommendation of the Shura, so it has now become a decision. It is not a decision. The Shura always makes recommendations, so do not worry. In any case, the election that was held, I haven't changed my view. A majority of the votes were cast in favor of Imaillah Nagi Sahiba. So for the next 2 years, I approve that she remains the president for the next 2 years, and may Allah give her the ability to work in the best way possible, and may you offer her the
Ab dua
best
kar le.
cooperation. Now let's join hands in silent prayers.
आमीन।